What's going on? It's Jerry Gleam back on the scene here with another video. Today, I'm going to be showing y'all how to enhance your 808s and your bass in order to make the low end of your mix sound good on smaller speakers. So let's hop right in and get to it. So a problem that I know a lot of people run into when they're mixing their low end is they have a hard time making their 808s, their bass guitars, their kick drums really cut through the mix when they're being played back on smaller speakers like iPhones and, cheaper earbuds, things of that nature. And the reason their low end just kind of gets lost on devices like these is because a lot of these smaller speakers are not even capable of reproducing these lower frequencies that make the 808 and the kick drum what they are. And this is a problem because more times than not, the majority of the people are going to be listening back to your song on a set of smaller, cheaper speakers. Now, in order to fix this problem, most beginners would just try to crank up the volume of their 808 or their kick drum, or they might reach for an EQ to boost some of the lower frequencies to make them stand out more. But the problem with these methods is that they're just going to make the smaller speakers work harder to reproduce frequencies that they're not even capable of reproducing. So this is going to make matters worse, and it's really just going to make things muddy. Let's go ahead and take a listen to this beat I made here in FL Studio so that way you can get a feel for what we're going to be working on today. Okay, so I have a plugin here called RBass made by Waves Audio, and for this particular beat, I have this plugin loaded on my 808. But this trick will work on bass guitars, sub bass, kick drums, really anything that lives in the lower frequency space within your mix. So what this plugin does is it takes those lower frequencies that you can't really hear on smaller speakers and it creates harmonics from them. Harmonics are way easier for the human ear to kind of pick up on and actually hear because they occur higher on the frequency spectrum, unlike really low frequencies, which you would need a good set of speakers to reproduce and hear. So what's really cool is that our brain is able to take these newly added harmonics that we're hearing from this plugin and reconstruct the lower frequencies from which the harmonics were created from. So that way the harmonics are making us feel like we're hearing these lower frequencies, even though the smaller speakers aren't even able to reproduce those lower frequencies. So adding harmonics to your 808s, your kick drums is really going to do wonders for you when you play back your mix on smaller speakers. Now, this plugin is very simple to use. There's not that many settings that you need to learn. So let's go ahead and go over everything that you're going to need to know. So here in the middle of the plugin, you have the intensity setting, and this is just going to control how much of the new harmonics you want to add into your signal. So if you have this set all the way down here at -24, you're not going to get any harmonics. So as you slowly bring this up is where you're going to start to hear what this plugin is doing. And then over here on the left side of the plugin is where you can choose whether or not to have your original bass signal included with your new harmonically enriched bass signal. So if you press this button in, it's going to remove the original bass, and then if you leave it untouched, then it's going to include the original bass. I usually always choose to have this untouched so that way I have a little bit of that original bass mixed in with my new signal. Now, if you do choose to include your original bass, you have a meter right here to kind of show you how much original bass is being kept and added to your new signal. So as you increase this intensity knob, you're going to be mixing in more and more harmonics, which is going to take away more and more of the original bass signal. So just keep an eye over here on this meter as you kind of dial in how much harmonics you're adding. Now, the meat and potatoes of this plugin is going to be the frequency setting down here at the bottom of the plugin. You see me dragging it left and right. So this is where you're going to basically tell the plugin what frequency you want to create harmonics from. And typically I like to have this set anywhere between 80 to 120 hertz. That's really the sweet spot as far as where I like to start dialing in harmonics from. Now, in order to pinpoint exactly where I want to set this frequency setting at, what I like to do is solo my 808 and then drag this intensity setting up to a spot to where I'm really going to hear exactly what this plugin is doing to my signal. And then I'll just basically drag this frequency setting left and right and kind of experiment with it until I find that sweet spot. Let's go ahead and take a listen. Okay, so right there at 110 hertz sounded good to my ears. It felt like a lot of body and presence was being added to the bass, and that's really what we aim to do with this plugin. Now, as y'all probably heard, when I drug that frequency setting to the left and to the right and was just kind of experimenting with it, when I got up to like 250 hertz, it felt like a lot of the power had just been lost and removed from the bass. So you definitely want to shy away from going too high with that frequency setting. And when I drug it too low, I was creating harmonics from the sub frequencies, which really has a tendency to kind of muddy things up a bit. And so we want to avoid basically going too low and going too high with the frequency knob. Trust your ears when you're using this frequency setting down here, right? Because this is where you're creating harmonics from. So you really want to find that sweet spot, and you're going to know when you find it because the bass is really going to be brought out and it's just going to sound very pleasant to your ears. Now, for a more scientific approach to setting the frequency on the R bass, what you can do is pull up an EQ plugin or really any metering plugin that shows you the frequency spectrum, and you're going to want to play your 808 through the plugin. And what you're going to notice, like in this example, when the 808 hits, you're going to see little peaks or spikes in audio, and these are going to represent the fundamental frequencies for your signal. Okay, so as y'all saw, there were peaks in audio down here in the 30 to 60 hertz range. There were some right here around 125. And as you made your way up into the mid range, there were even some peaks in audio right there. So I typically like to pick the ones that are occurring right here around the 125 hertz range. And like I said earlier, if you set this frequency setting too high, you're going to remove a lot of the power from the bass. But if you set it too low, you're just going to muddy things up. Now, the next thing we want to do is basically blend in these newly added harmonics to our signal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this intensity setting to the lowest setting possible. And then I'm just going to press play and slowly bring that intensity setting up to kind of mix in these harmonics. Now that step is going to be up to you to decide how much of those harmonics do you want to add into your signal? Like how drastic do you want this effect to be? Now, as you add in these harmonics to your signal, you're going to get some increases in loudness. So you want to use this output gain knob right here to match the volume of the 808 before you applied this plugin. You don't want to trick your ears into thinking that, it just sounds better because it got louder, right? We want to return it to its original volume, but now it's going to have these newly added harmonics. All right, so that's it for today. I hope y'all learned something. Please consider subscribing to the channel if you enjoyed the content. Leave me a comment, let me know what you think, and I'll see y'all in the next video.